Hello, friends. Interesting times we're living in, isn't it? I thought I'd jump on here and do a quick little talk that's more or less about trying to open up some understanding, at least as I see it, and maybe some different ideas that will help everyone come to terms with what's going on right now. As of shooting this video, it's the end of January 31st, 2022. Is that what it is? I think so. Anyway. So, I want to take a little trip for a minute back to 1773, the Boston Tea Party. So what was the Boston Tea Party? The American Revolutionary War was a 20-year affair. They always talk about 1776, but 1776 was the Declaration of Independence. The war continued on until 1793, I believe. Going off my memory here, but if you look in the historical record, the battles in the war raged for about 20 years. And what was the Boston Tea Party? The Boston Tea Party was some colonialists got very tired of taxation without representation, and what that essentially was is that the crown was basically taking money without repeal. You couldn't reproach the orders. They just were carte blanche taking money. And because, people making tea and other products, they're usually the kind of people who make things happen, and it is very uncharacteristical for those people to be of that mindset and then turn around and just kowtow and bow to everything you see, or to everything that was being done to them, not unlike what you see now. And so the Boston Tea Party guys went to Boston, threw the tea in the harbor, rendering it worthless, making the king very angry, and of course stoked the war, which, went on for quite a long time after that. So here we have the truckers situation. Isn't it interesting? Now, if you've reviewed some of my other videos, I'm a pretty big advocate of I'm an advocate of manifestation, but the core message of manifestation is to let it go. So let's think about this for a minute. It's no mystery that, I have strong opinions about things like the vaccination, things about the way the society has been going in the last couple of years. But with everything coming to a head right now, it is actually the culmination of manifestation. So this goes very, very deep, but one of the key things, at least among the liberation groups, is that, we got to get up, we got to take a stand, we got to do something about this. But again, no one was doing it. It's a desire that everyone has, and that is what manifestation is. For sure, there have been lots of people over the last year who've been, praying, "Dear Lord, can you deliver us from this?" Which is nothing wrong with praying that way, but the instruction actually is to pray as if it's already done. So my particular prayer or desire is simply, thank you, God, for taking care of this. Done. Sure, I'm going to get, I and other people are going to get caught up in the minutia of the moment when certain things happen. Not unlike what's going on now, because we're actually in the beginning stages of how this is all going to unfold. But this is the beginning. When you see your manifestation coming, it's an exciting thing. And no one could have ever imagined it would happen this way. And actually it's happened this way at the hands of the people who started this whole thing. So here's what I mean. So if you think about the mandates, we had, the original restrictions, face masks, going out in the world, all that kind of stuff, lockdown, et cetera, et cetera. No one was happy about that. But what really started tipping the scales is that when they rolled out the vaccinations, which initially were voluntary, but then it's like, oh no, we have to have government workers, we have to have healthcare workers, we have to have teachers, we have to have, police, fire, all these kind of things. As they slowly increase the constriction on these different groups. And it's very interesting to note how a lot of these different groups, of course, many of them were on side and took the injection, but many of them just either bowed out or pursued other avenues of either getting exemptions or, some of those battles are still ongoing. But the tipping point is actually the hubris of being overconfident. So you see this a lot in Australia where they've just been rolling over mandate. And in Australia, people have just been like, they've been taking it. And who knows why that is? There's an argument, just as an aside, there's an argument that the one commonality of the most progressive and successful nations in the world is winter. Well, Australia really doesn't have a winter of much significance. So maybe all that warm weather made them soft. I don't know. But it's an interesting idea to think about. But you can message me privately if you want to talk about that sometime. But let's talk about this specifically. So the hubris of the government is that they essentially said to everyone, all the truckers, 36,000 of them, I believe, hey, you can't do your job unless you get injected. Now you must understand, a year and a half, 2 years into this thing, most everyone who's not been injected is likely not on board. Either they believe it's deadly or at least not good, or they just don't want to be told what to do. There's a lot of people in the, truckers. A lot of truckers are essentially small business people because many of them will buy their truck and will work by the mile. And of course, represented here, there are some companies, of course, but truckers basically they're in the kind of profession where they, they're on their own. They're very nomadic. They're like the hunters of old, who would, they get their spears, say, honey, I'll be back in 2 weeks, and 2 weeks later they come back with a saber tooth, right? That's what a trucker does. So that mindset is ingrained right in them, and God bless them for that, because essentially by the government taking this, carte blanche action on the 15th and the 22nd for the Americans, you have a situation where they push too hard. And now now this is the perfect fulfillment of all of us who've been waiting for something to rise up, because so often humans are pack animals. When we talk about, oh yeah, I got to rise up, there's not too many of us who will go down to City Hall with a bullhorn and start just calling it out, because, even among independent circles, there has to be a group. So I've oftentimes used the example of fish, all those thousands of tiny little fish that move at the ocean and seem to move in unison. And then you have dolphins. Well, dolphins don't typically move alone. They're in what's called pods, usually with 20 dolphins. And occasionally there's ones that are on their own for whatever reason, but groups are still very much so, strength in numbers, if you will. Doesn't matter what your numbers are, but it's strength in numbers. So, you're seeing this manifestation unfold. What does it look like? Well, as of the shooting this video, we don't know, but you could right well imagine that, the sheer numbers of people that are lined up in this thing, from the standpoint of the people that are participating, if you watch the mainstream news, you're not going to get it all. It's just the bottom line. And that's telling in and of itself. You've got this huge separation that's occurring in society among those people who are attempting to control the narrative and those people who want to break free of that control. Right or wrong, that's not what this video is about. This video is about receiving your desired manifestation. But how do you get your desired manifestation? Because everybody is always manifesting. So, for example, what you fear, you attract. So what does that sentence come from? Well, that sentence is obviously rooted in it's even rooted in the Bible. David, when he when his child, Bathsheba's child, who he had illegitimate, was dying, he laments and he says, the thing I have feared the most has come upon me. And so, yeah, there's a lot of us that are like, oh my God, someone's going to show up and vaccinate me at my door and diddly do. And I guess that is theoretically possible in a certain kind of world. But on the flip side, the fear of the fear of the vaccinated are like, oh no, not everybody's getting on board with us, and it'll be crazy in bedlam, and then we'll have to go back to the way it was, like where everybody's getting sick. Those are two fears. I'm not going to tell you, I can be theatrical at times and make it seem a little comical. My point is those are the core fears that are going on here. And so clearly we're seeing now in the will of the people, we've got all these people standing around in Ottawa. That's a big deal. I don't know the official numbers, but I've heard numbers thrown around as much as 1 million plus people, maybe 1.5 million. It's a lot of people. The convoy is 40 miles long. How many trucks do you need to make 40 miles, right? So I'm going to do a few more videos coming up just talking about this situation. But I wanted to just hop on and say this has been our manifestation unfolding. And when I say our manifestation, it is really everyone's, because there are people who have been vaccinated who are just like, they're sick of the rules and just the general bureaucracy. Like I'm not saying people that are vaccinated are idiots, but there are some people who, they value different things. Maybe they value a perceived level of freedom. They value ease of movement, all that kind of stuff. And to some degree, they've been betrayed because they played by the rules and it hasn't worked out for them. And then, of course, you have the other people who are unvaccinated who are like, no, we're gonna dig our heels in. So this is actually both our manifestations coming together. The question is how you deal with it, because ultimately you can be all, those rascally unvaccinated, or even like you saw Justin Trudeau's speech of today of talking about how he'd rather go to a BLM rally than to the truckers' protest, right? It's very, very amusing. In any case, though, I'm going to do a few other videos about some of my opinions on how society is moving, and as well, just things to be aware of, because I make it very clear that there's some things that are unfolding in our society that, hey, you can get washed away with it. That happens more often than not throughout history, or you can step just to the side and watch the wave go by. So stay tuned.